Hectors, doctors, and porters are our gods here. That's the saying in the high altitude areas of Ladakh when soldiers get deployed in the chilled winters of that high altitude desert. On Simply Nitin this week, I'm going to talk about the importance of logistics in the war fighting machinery that gets deployed in such difficult areas. I am Nitin Gokhale. They say amateurs discuss strategy, professionals study logistics. It's an old saying in the military because the army marches on its stomach and, of course, wants to stay comfortable while trying to take on an enemy which is larger, which has deeper pockets, and maybe better equipped in terms of technology. That's what the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force are doing in the high altitude of Ladakh this winter. As winter approaches and temperatures dip below zero and are likely to go down to -40, one of the major problems that the army faces is to have habitat which is livable, which is comfortable, if not completely luxurious. As additional troops get inducted into Ladakh to mirror the deployment of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, one of the major headaches that the army planners have is to cater for their requirements if they have to live through the winter months, which last up to April from November. Now, as it is, the 14 Corps, which is the only corps in the world which is deployed permanently at high altitude. Remember, it has two permanent divisions. One looks after the line of control with Pakistan, and that is the 8th Mountain Division, and the other was the 3 Infantry Division, which was looking after the Eastern Ladakh segment of the deployment under 14 Corps. They have been there since 1999 under 14 Corps, and the logistics effort of the 14 Corps has been now completely streamlined since then. There have been systems put in place which also have a very strict timetable. For instance, the planning for what is called advanced winter stocking and later enhanced winter stocking begins almost 1 year to 18 months ahead of the stocking that has to be put in place at various places across the entire core zone, as they call it. The core zone has different ordnance echelons, which means when trucks bring in food items, tentage, snow clothing, gloves, and whatever you need for keeping the troops comfortable, they are stored at various levels in various quantities. Now imagine if thrice the number of the normal troops that exist in Ladakh are inducted. The gigantic effort that is involved in feeding and then creating habitats for stay of these additional troops is something that the army started in July, when it became very clear that they may have to stay through the winter given China's belligerence on the line of actual control. Now, it is not easy. The 60% of the requirement of the troops, both additional and the existing, is in the form of what is called FOL, fuel, oil and lubricants. Fuel is required, large quantities of kerosene is required to keep the soldiers heated. The kerosene stoves and the bukharis are fed by the kerosene which is brought in from the plains of Punjab and Himachal Pradesh. Now, why is it important to store them in Ladakh at such high altitudes? It's because the two existing roads that have been feeding or are connected to Ladakh get closed because of the snowfall, and the passes that close because of heavy snowfall in those passes. One at Zojila, which is more sort of popular or better known than Baralalcha, which is on the Manali-Leh axis. And of course, Zojila is on the Srinagar-Leh road. But fortunately, because India has been planning for this contingency for some time, there is a third axis which has come up, which those of you who have seen my programs earlier have understood that the new Padam Darcha Nimu Leh road, which will add to the road capacity or the access to Ladakh from this winter. Now that is a blessing, but otherwise, most of the supplies in the winters used to go through on what is called the workhorse of the Indian Air Force, the IL-76, and now of course C-17s that have come from the United States. It's ironical, and I think Indian Army is the only army which is using the IL-76, which is a Russian platform, which is a Russian airplane, transport airplane, and C-17, which is a United States built and manufactured airplane. These two carry huge loads of food, chocolates, high nutrition food, medicines. Also, air ambulances are created when required, because high altitude also creates health problems for even the fittest of soldiers. So, what has the army done in this winter, or as the winter approaches? What has it planned? It has planned, as I said, various storage facilities at various locations. They can range from 40,000 square feet to about 4,000 square feet. Camps have been established on open ground. Fortunately, Ladakh has lots of open areas and plenty of land is available. So tents have been put up. These are modern tents which look after the soldiers in the extreme winters. Now, what do they store? They store triple layers of snow clothing, 3 pairs of socks, gloves, the caps that they have to wear, and of course, highly nutritious food, chocolates, dry fruits. All these are stored for various stages of acclimatization. Remember, soldiers are deployed from 9,000 feet upwards. So there are 3 stages of acclimatization and 3 stages of deployment. So 9,000 feet, 12,000 feet, and 15,000 feet and above. And most of the deployment in eastern Ladakh is 15,000 feet and above. It doesn't snow very much, but the temperatures go down to at least -20, -30 degrees. The road has to be kept open at the passes, the high passes which are there, Khardungla, Changla, Baralalcha, Zozila. All these passes have to be either kept open or they have to be catered for, that they will get closed, and therefore Ladakh must have all the requirements that soldiers need. The job of keeping the roads open is of course with the Border Roads Organization, and you've seen some of my programs on Border Roads Organization, that how they have cut through hard rock through the Zanskar Valley, or have improved the roads from Zozila upwards towards Leh. All that has happened, and remember, the planners for logistics, the Ordnance Corps and the Supply Corps have to make sure that there is no room for error, because once the snow passes close or the high passes close because of snow, there is no way that tanks or trucks can come through unless, of course, the BRO makes an Herculean effort to cut through the 8-10 feet of snow that accumulates at Zozila or at Baralalcha. Now, this is how it is done. In fact, the cost is of course very high. As somebody has calculated, the advanced light helicopter Dhruv, which is now being increasingly used, it's an indigenously manufactured helicopter. To fly that with full load, it costs upwards of 7 lakh rupees an hour. Imagine the cost that Indian Army and Indian Air Force will entail to keep these soldiers well fed, well supplied. And I'm not even talking about ammunition, which is of course been stocked even well in advance, even before this standoff has begun. So therefore, this is what the army has now done in these months in the run-up to the winter. The winter has become severe from middle of November. So we are speaking almost towards the end of September. So about 40 days are still left to complete the stocking. And if I have to give you a benchmark of costing, to feed 3,000 troops, 1 brigade deployed on the high altitudes of Siachen, which is also completely snowbound, normally the calculation is about, the Indian Army spends about 5 crore rupees a day. Now that's 1 brigade. 3 brigades make up for a division. There are now at least 3 divisions of the Indian Army deployed in Ladakh. You can calculate the cost yourself. Not everything, of course, will be of the same standard or same calculation or same money will be required. But the fact is, there is huge cost involved in keeping the army deployed there, and of course establish medical facilities at various places, because living on at altitudes which are 10,000 feet plus or 15,000 feet plus is not easy. People fall sick, even the fittest of soldiers, as I mentioned. Therefore, you need immediate medical attention, and therefore you need air ambulances. Some of the helicopters are turned into air ambulances. Evacuation is an important factor. And the other issue, of course, will go down a bit, or the problem will go down a bit in the winter. But in the summer months, as the months have now going towards the winter, during summer months there was another problem. The helicopters cannot really use their full load of carrying capacity because of rarefied atmosphere in Ladakh. Oxygen is limited or even scarce, and therefore the helicopters have a limited time of flying between 5 a.m. to 12 noon. Now, between 5 a.m. to 12 noon is the window available for the helicopters to fly. So I'll give you an example of what happens on Siachen. The helicopters start flying, the Cheetah, the smaller helicopter which can take up to 2 passengers, starts flying at 5 a.m. in the morning at sunrise. So when they start from the base camp, which is at about 12,000 feet, the Siachen base camp, the Cheetah makes the first trip almost empty. It takes 1 jerry can of fuel and also maybe a bag of the postal bag which carries letters and documents to the soldiers deployed at the high altitude. Now, while coming down, because they have expended some fuel, the tank is full while it's going up. Some fuel gets expended. So while coming down, if some soldiers have to come down in an emergency, if they have to go on leave or something, the soldier doesn't come with his bag. The bag comes down to the base camp, which takes about 15 minutes from the highest post to the base camp. Then again the helicopter goes back with 1 more jerry can, and then the soldier comes down with his bag, with a smaller bag in fact. And that's how soldiers are brought down in an emergency. Otherwise they have to walk down from say 22,000 feet to about 12,000 feet and then go in a convoy to Leh, then fly out from there in a commercial airline, come to Delhi, and then from here go somewhere. Now imagine if a Madras regiment soldier from Kanyakumari or say Madurai is posted in Siachen. The amount of traveling he has to do to go on leave is like this. So from Siachen he will come down, walking down 3 days to the base camp from the highest post, then go to Leh. It will take him 1 more day, 24 hours. From Leh he will fly out to Delhi. And from Delhi, if he's flying to Chennai or Madurai, it's fine. Otherwise, if he's taking a train, it takes him 3 more days. So he actually spends 7 days to come down from Siachen and go home. And similar return journey if he has to go back to get deployed again. So it's the same thing as far as the entire Ladakh area is concerned. When now soldiers have been rushed in there from various other sectors, additional troops have come in there. It's a logistics nightmare, but the army has managed it. There was a complete coverage of that entire effort done by some of the media houses. Some of the reporters who went there were taken there by the army, and one has seen how the best of the equipment and clothing has been made available to these soldiers there. India will spare no effort in spending that money, because after all the soldiers are doing a job which is guarding the territorial integrity of the country. If you listen to one of the storekeepers, a local Ladakhi woman, you will realize how even the locals are supporting this effort in keeping the logistics supply chain moving and functioning. That's the way the army functions. We all see bravery, we see valor on screen, or we hear stories about bravery and valor. But remember, behind all that effort is this massive logistics effort that goes on, which actually keeps the army morale high and keeps the morale of the soldiers very high so that they can fight the adversary when required, as we see in the earlier conflicts and wars that have happened in Ladakh. But now the area is on the knife's edge, and the soldiers know that they are comfortable because of the effort taken by their support organizations like the Army Ordnance Corps, Army Service Corps, and of course the entire effort by the Aviation Corps or the Air Force, which brings in Mi-17s, which has got the Apaches, the Chinooks. Everything has been put into Ladakh right now. Concentration is there, which doesn't mean that other sectors like Arunachal Pradesh or Sikkim have also been neglected. That's what I wanted to bring to your notice, that deploying the army is one thing, but sustaining it during the hard days of winter or the harsh winter that high altitude brings in is quite another. And as I said in the beginning, those who are smart, those who are professionals, actually first discuss logistics and not tactics or strategy to take on the adversary. These are the details which I wanted to share with you, because these are not easily either available or not easily given out by most media reports. The other issue that you must mark is the kind of roads that the Border Roads Organization has now built, which will carry tanks, which will carry artillery guns, which will carry heavy equipment and carry them easily. Earlier, that was one of the big problems that the Indian Army faced, that all of these roads were narrow, they were single lane roads, and of course they went down in floods or in snow. But the Border Roads Organization has ensured in the last 2 or 3 years that there are alternative roads available. If one road closes, there is another road that can open or that can keep supplies going there. Till I come to you with more such information, do keep watching, keep sending feedback, and of course like us on our social media platforms, and do let me know of any suggestions that you have for me to make such programs going forward. Until the next time, it's goodbye.